Jim Lampley, HBO's boxing host and a host of the Fight Game with Jim Lampley. The replay of Canelo and Triple G Saturday at 10:05 Eastern and Pacific, then available on HBO Go and HBO Now. Jim joins us now. Good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing okay. If I didn't see the fight on Saturday night, how would you sum it up?
Well, it's a great fight. It was a better fight than the fight which preceded it a year ago, and that was a fight that got a lot of acclaim and a lot of attention for sustained intensity and technical brilliance. And this is a better fight. Both guys went to a higher level, and it's a tremendously difficult fight to score. Every round is close, and we've already seen how their styles converge in such a way that both guys get a chance to show what they can do, and there's a high degree of disagreement among fans and ringside media experts, et cetera, as to who is actually the winner, just as was the case a year ago when it was a draw. And so there's a lot to see there. It's the kind of fight that serious, intense, devoted boxing fans will watch several times as the years go by, because it's very memorable combat between two tremendously important fighters who have brought a lot to the sport, and one of them I think will continue to bring a lot to the sport for a while still yet to come. I'm not sure about Gennady Golovkin at 36. He's pushing the envelope, but he put on a brilliant comeback in the closing rounds of the fight the other night after having seemed to fall behind in the first half of the fight, and made it very, very difficult to determine at the end who exactly was the winner. Two judges gave the 12th round to Canelo. That's what created the Canelo win. And I'm curious about that. I'm going to have to look back at the fight again myself to try to figure out how two judges gave the 12th round to to Canelo, when it appeared to be just, calling the fight that probably Golovkin was the winner of the 12th round. And if those judges give the 12th round to Golovkin instead of Canelo, it would have been a draw. And I just have an instinctive sense that a draw might have been the right result this time, just as a draw was the result a year ago. They act up in such a way that it's just really hard to choose who has gotten the better of the other guy.
Do the judges talk after these fights?
Do the judges talk to each other after the fight?
No, to the media.
I don't. Oh, no, they don't talk to media. And the Nevada State Athletic Commission is very strict about not wanting judges to talk to media. So they try to bottle that as much as they can. And, I don't know of anybody who's spoken to one of these judges in the wake of the fight.
I know that there's always conspiracy theories, and we look at, follow the money in boxing, and you can throw in these things that, are time-tested here. If I look at Canelo Alvarez and Triple G, as you mentioned, the future of the sport, then it's Canelo Alvarez more than it is Triple G. I don't know what factors in with this, Jim, but you were there. I think you said something about you'd have to be Looney Tunes to think that somebody could score at 118 to 110 in the first match between these two. Did you see something that you would say, I know who won that fight after this second fight?
No, I don't think I would have to look back at this fight, and I think I'm going to have to look at it more than once to really give you a strong inclination as to who won the fight. But, I mean, again, to make the point, the styles converge in an amazingly sort of natural way that creates the opportunity for these constant surges of momentum back and forth. You know, one guy dominates for 15 or 20 seconds, and then the other guy comes back. And you wind up with exceptionally close, very difficult to score rounds. That's point one. Point two, and I've made this point many, many times in public. The average guy sits at home on the sofa and looks at a fight and says to himself, well, you know, this isn't difficult. I can score fights. It's not an enterprise that's very challenging. I think I know who wins and who loses. I can make these choices. That's a myth. It's not that easy. It's an exceptionally difficult job. It's a subjective enterprise. I mean, there's a reason why there are 3 judges and they sit at 3 different spots around the ring. The authorities who run the sport are attempting in every way they can to sort of balance out human error, because this is an enterprise that is inherently subject to human error. And, you know, to everybody who says to me, oh, the judges are terrible, you know, and I know I could do better, et cetera, I always say, okay, turn off the volume. Let's see if we can get to a clean video feed where there are no graphics whatsoever. You don't get CompuBox. You don't get Harold Letterman. You don't get replays. You don't get all of the aids that the home viewer has in watching and evaluating the fight. You sit there with your naked eye and watch what happens between 2 guys in the ring. Sometimes you're blocked by the referee. Sometimes you're blocked because action takes place on the other side of the ring and a fighter has his back to you while he's actually doing great work that you can't actually see from the angle at which you're sitting. And then once the round is over, you've got 2 seconds to write down a name on a slip of paper and hand it to the referee who's coming by to get it. So, you know, the people make mistakes. And it's very easy to do so in that enterprise. And yes, I thought the Adelaide Bird 110 scorecard a year ago was preposterous. It was an atrocity. And so, of course, you know, she wasn't a part of the panel the other night, and I'm not sure when we'll see her judging a big fight again. But when you get down to, you know, whether Canelo won 6 rounds or 7, whether Gennady has won the last 3 or 4 rounds in a row, and judges are trying to choose in a very, very subjective, fine margin situation. And another thing I'll say is a lot of people think that the margins of competition in boxing are wide. They aren't. The margins of competition in boxing are pretty much like the margins of competition in tennis. They're very fine. And you know, what happens in tennis and in boxing is 2 competitors come into the ring, they face each other face to face, and eventually one guy finds that there's a weakness, there's something that he can exploit in the other guy, and he goes back to that weakness over and over and over and over, and eventually you see what you think is, a wide margin of competition. There are big differences between these guys. This guy's really good, and he's so much better. It isn't necessarily the case that that's overall true. It means that he found the one thing that's working that night, and he can repeat it and repeat it and repeat it in such a way that he creates a big competitive gap. But it isn't really a large competitive gap. They work very, very hard all their lives. They perfect a craft that's extremely difficult. And at the end of the day, they know what they're doing. So face-to-face, sometimes only the fighters really know who won. I'm not even sure that Canelo Alvarez or Gennady Golovkin could tell you with complete certainty in their minds who won the other night. They know that there's not much difference between them.
Talking to Jim Lampley, HBO Sports. When's the last time somebody called you Dan Patrick?
It's been a while. I always point out to people that you are way taller than me, and I think considerably younger, although, I don't know, you might be catching me.
I'm 62. Are you lying on your age there? Have you stopped?
you're still going to have to go for a few years. So, I mean, I think you may eventually get to me, but at the moment, I am still ahead of you on the age ledger. Yes.
You're ahead on all cards right now, Jim.
But I do get that. I have gotten that several times. In fact, I don't even know if you know this, but at one point I peddled as a producer in Hollywood a parody of a sportscaster's life called the Skip Lightning Show. And at first I was going to be cast as Skip Lightning. And in the opening sequence, Skip Lightning got out of a car in a parking lot somewhere, and a kid comes up and asks for an autograph, and Skip Lightning signs the autograph. And as the kid walks away, he turns around and yells and says, "Hey, I thought you were Dan Patrick." So we've played off of this thing before.
Jim, good to catch up with you, and I'm sure we'll have part 3 of this tandem here coming up soon. Thank you for joining us.
I'm not so sure there will be a part 3. I am 100% certain of that. Everybody's saying that because of the economic reality, but I'm not 100% certain that Triple G is going to want to do it again. We'll see.
Thank you, Jim.
All right. Talk to you later.
That's Jim Lampley. He was on the call of Triple G and Canelo Alvarez. I don't know. If you do a quick turnaround here, but I do think that boxing, you look at the future, and Canelo is more the future than Triple G is. Triple G won the first fight. I think you could get a consensus that he won the first fight. I thought he took the last round off. I thought it cost him. I think it came down to that narrow of a margin, obviously.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.